Hi, greetings everyone, and welcome to the second event in FinCity Tokyo's Global Networking Series. My name is Justin, and I'll be the facilitator for today's event. So the goal of today's session is to connect foreign companies to the local ecosystems in Japan and provide access to necessary information and infrastructure. Today's event will be held in two parts. In the first part, details of public support that is available to fintech and asset management companies will be described by representatives from FinCity Tokyo, the Financial Services Agency of Japan, and the Business Development Center Tokyo. Part 2 will introduce Japan's ecosystem and financial industry trends and feature speakers from FinoLab, J-Career Co. Ltd., Atsumi & Sakai Law Firm, and Japan Asset Management Platform Group. So at any time during today's session, please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box. And we will address as many questions as we can towards the end of each speech. And for questions that we're not able to address, we will try as much as possible to get to those inquiries via email at a later time. But please feel free to submit your questions at any time. So with that, I will turn it over to our first speaker, Naomi Takeshi, Relationship Manager from FinCity Tokyo, who will provide an overview of the support ecosystem to help foreign firms settle in Tokyo. Ms. Takeshi?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think we're ready to go. Thank you very much for the intro. I'm Naomi Takeshi, Relationship Manager for FinCity Tokyo. My objective of this talk is to give you an overview of how FinCity Tokyo work with the parties to promote the common goal of promoting Tokyo as a financial center, and also to introduce the wider ecosystem of the support that's available in Tokyo. We have some speakers after me from BDC Tokyo and Financial Services Agency of Japan, and also some guests from the private sector. So I very much hope that my talk will give a background for their presentations. So can I go to the first slide, please? Okay, so FinCity Tokyo, who are we? We were established last year in April as a public-private promotional organization to progress the Global Financial City Tokyo initiative. We are funded both by Tokyo Metropolitan government and private sector members, whom we have about more than 40 members now, consisting of large mega banks, but also of startup firms. And also we have some foreign company members, such as Aflac, Morgan Stanley, Schroders, etc. And our secretariat, as you will see, it's a small team. And naturally, we cannot look after all foreign firms wishing to enter the Tokyo market. Therefore, it's crucial that we work with our various partners. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so this diagram sketches out how we work together with the related parties. So Tokyo Metropolitan government, they have the ownership of the Tokyo as a global financial center agenda. They drive the policy, they've got the budget. And we work alongside them with BDC Tokyo, which is operated by a private company, Persona, and EY, who are in charge of the Invest Tokyo program. So you see TMG, the Tokyo Metropolitan government, in the center, but we are very aware that we want to be joined up, therefore are gathering on a monthly basis to share information, address challenges that we're facing in attracting foreign firms to Japan, to Tokyo, and we want to work very much as one team to promote Tokyo as a financial center. You will be hearing from BDC Tokyo later. Okay, shall we go to the next slide, please, then? Okay, so this diagram, it's very crowded, but this is an attempt by me to map out what support there is to address the kind of questions that foreign companies like yourselves would have in mind when looking at the Japanese market. So if you go to the center of these circles, yeah, you've got a foreign company wondering about the various challenges, the things that they have to address. Broadly, this is not exhaustive, but broadly, I think there are the four big pillars here. Firstly, business development. Is there a market for my business in Japan? How do I go about entering the market? Do I partner with partner firms? That kind of business development related questions. And then going to the left, the company establishment, obtaining the appropriate license, visa requirements, etc. All things legal, I suppose, would come under the next segment. And then if you have a Japan operation, so who's going to run it? How do I find my country manager? How do I hire people? What are the labor requirements, insurance requirements as an employer that I have to fulfill? That kind of staffing and HR related questions. And then finally about locating your office in Tokyo. I know this is not exhaustive. There are issues like tax, for example, that also needs to be considered. But yes, let's look at these questions. And I've put FinCity Tokyo's logo in the center. That's because there are various parties tagged in this diagram. FinCity Tokyo, I consider my role very much as signposting. So a company comes to us and think with them who would be the best source of advice for them to consult. So very much consider as a signposting role, first point of contact. Yeah, so, okay, we've got these questions. And now let's look at the circle immediately around the circle with the questions. So, okay, let's look at business development. Because I think the parties that I described in an earlier slide, who's involved with promoting companies set up in Tokyo, our emphasis tends to be more on the actual setting up in Tokyo, as opposed to helping companies find business opportunities. But there are organizations who can help with that. EY's Invest Tokyo program, it's a very all-encompassing kind of end-to-end program, which also looks at the business opportunities and how you should plan your business in Japan. And the embassies, foreign embassies and chambers of commerce, they often have an active trade development team and who are well plugged into the local industry to help firms of their countries to enter the Japanese market. And in terms of developing business, you probably want to be building contacts. Sadly, with COVID-19, it's less feasible nowadays to do networking events where we have foreign companies like yourselves come to Tokyo and swap business cards, etc. But some of them are being delivered on online format. Well, today's event, well, it is a webinar rather than networking, but it does enable you to build contact with some of the people involved in helping foreign firms. I've put down TAMF. This is an abbreviation of Tokyo Asset Management Forum, which has been an event held by Tokyo Metropolitan Government with the partners. And also at the end of today's event, EY colleagues will be talking about some of the future series of this events where firms would have opportunities to connect with the local contacts here. So that was about business development. Let's go left to the left top segment. Okay, company establishment and licensing. We are fortunate later to hear from BDC Tokyo. There are also, you probably would have heard a lot of these acronyms. Jetro, TOSBEC. Jetro is Japan's, is like the Japan's inward investment agency, running the Invest Japan program. I would definitely recommend you to look at their website because it has a wealth of information on how you go about setting up a company, very comprehensive information in English. And also on Jetro, I'd like to flag up Jetro IBSC, which you will see at the right bottom circle as well. But that's the Jetro International Business Support Center. It's like an incubation office. Foreign firms with an intention to set up in Tokyo, they get office space for up to 50 days free of charge. You will have to go through Jetro's office in your country. They have overseas offices, or through headquarters, to be screened and to be to have a discussion on your plans, so that they can assess whether you can take advantage of this this office. TOSBEC, it stands from Tokyo One-Stop Business Establishment Center. They also provide detailed information and advice to foreign firms, and this is free of charge. And on registration as a financial instruments exchange firm, suppose the listeners who come from the asset management industry, they would have a strong interest in the appropriate registration criteria under the Financial Instrument and Exchange Act. BDC Tokyo, that's one area they have expertise. I have accompanied some, online, some companies to get advice from them. And I'm also delighted that we have a speaker later from the Financial Services Agency, our financial services regulator, who are completely on board on the need to get to attract foreign firms to invigorate Japan's financial services industry. So they have a support desk, consultation for asset management, and also there's a fintech help desk, I believe. And from my experience in helping for foreign companies have interviews, meetings with BDC Tokyo and FSA support desk, I think it is crucial that firms would have done some homework, thought about what it is that they want to do in Tokyo clearly, so that the meeting is beneficial for both sides, for you and FSA or BDC Tokyo. Okay, so that was about the legal aspect. Sorry, you'll probably see the squares at the outside, but I shall cover them in a minute, because there are some private sector providers listed there. And next, on staffing and HR, yes, how you go about hiring people. There are, of course, recruitment agencies, but finding the right person at the right time, there is, I think, an element of probability and luck. So it's having your good personal network, I think that's also crucial. So therefore, I have put down things like SNS. LinkedIn usage is not as prevalent as it is here in Japan compared to some of the other markets, but still LinkedIn, I think people who use Japan-based people who use them, they would usually have a outward focus in outlook in thinking their career. So I would consider it worthwhile to network, particularly when you cannot come to Japan physically through SNS. There's also there are also recruitment online platforms, like examples like Indeed. Wantedly is a Japanese platform. I have used them in my previous career when I was searching for staff. Of course, they're the free version and the chargeable service, depending on the level of service that you would like to have. from these platforms, linked into. And networking events, again, this is something that you would be able to take advantage if people can travel freely to Tokyo. I think meeting people, getting introduction, that is quite crucial in finding candidates, as well as using the services offered by the specialists. And in this segment at the very top, I've got Tokyo Employment Consultation Center. This is, again, a public sector outlet where you can obtain advice on employment and employers' obligations, etc., that kind of labor-related issues. So finally, on office space, I've mentioned Jetro IBSC earlier in terms of the public sector offer. So this diagram, the circle that I've covered right now, that represents more of the public sector offer, or public sector related offer. Let's move out, where I've kind of listed the private sector offers. And some of the people will be presenting today, starting from business development on how you develop your business. Of course, there are the consultants who can help you. Accelerators, we will have Shibata-san from FinLab speak later. And in the case of FinTech, you have plug and play as well. There are also other accelerators. And of course, there are commercial events, maybe less of the face-to-face events, but a lot of the larger exhibition. Like last week, we had CTech, a tech event, ISUM. These events are being delivered on online format. So taking part in commercial events, that would also help you develop your network, get your name known. Company establishment licensing, these are moving on to the left. We will be hearing later from Atsumi and Sakai law firm lawyer. They're the Bengoshi, Japanese lawyers, Bengoshi, you'll hear the word a lot, Bengoshi firms who provide Japanese legal advice, but there are also a category of legal professions, which are probably very unique to Japan, and you might be hearing about them. So just mention, I won't go into detail, but just mention that they're the Shihou Shoshi lawyers, Gyosei Shoshi lawyers. These lawyers tend to have a remit on furnishing paperwork. In the case of Shihou Shoshi lawyers, to go to the Legal Affairs Bureau, Gyosei Shoshi lawyers to go to administrative agencies. So we're talking about things like visa documents, immigration documents, or company incorporation, or the document or registration under the Financial Instrument and Exchange Act. Okay, and moving down to staffing and HR, we'll be hearing later from a recruitment company. And there are also recruitment online platforms that I mentioned the free version, but there are, of course, the ones where you receive more more in-depth support according to how much you pay. I suppose social labor consultants, again, this is Japanese profession, sharoshi. These are the people who are specialists on employment law and employers' obligations. And finally, moving on to the office space area, again, this is where there are a lot of private sector, as you would imagine, offer. Companies can probably start from working with accelerators, or there's increased presence of service office co-working space in Tokyo as well. That's where you have, I should say, a shorter term commitment, whereas if you're kind of going for proper full office tenancy, of course, the initial investment is higher. But there are real estate companies who are aware of attracting fintech or asset management firms. And for example, where FinCity Tokyo is housed, we are in an office complex called FinGate, which is run by Heiwa Fudosan, which is a private sector firm again, and it's being shared by 10 or so asset management firms. So there are other offers by other large Japanese real estate firms, Mitsubishi, Mitsui, just to name a few. If you look at the private sector offer, there is, as I was saying, from monthly shared co-working space to your very first class office in central Tokyo. So yeah, that was the counter through of the Tokyo ecosystem, both looking from the public sector to what offer there is in private sector, just to set a context for the speakers who will be talking after myself. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Takegoshi. If possible, I'd like you to answer one of the questions that we have from the audience, which is, if I don't understand whom I should contact first, who would be the first contact point? So is that
okay.
FinCity?
Yes.
Is it okay to ask FinCity for that?
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, today, given it's a FinCity event, and I've kind of kicked off doing the intro as a signpost person, please do feel free to come to me, and we can discuss and consider where you, whom you need to be speaking to, given where you are at the moment with the Japan entry plan.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have a few questions from different people about whether or not the slides will be shared after the presentations. The slides will be shared after the presentation. Okay, and so thank you again, Ms. Takegoshi. And we do have some other questions. Okay, sorry. Just one moment. Okay, so the question is, for fintech companies coming to Japan, how do you apply for government grants?
Fintech companies coming to Japan, okay. If you are setting up a firm in an office in Tokyo, there is a subsidy program by the Tokyo Metropolitan government, which can be allocated to costs which you have to pay for obtaining the service providers' support, very much like the members of the ecosystem that I mentioned. It's up to, was it 7.5 million yen or 7 million yen? I'm sorry, the exact figure escapes me, but there is a subsidy program subject to furnishing the right paperwork. My BDC Tokyo colleague might be talking about this, but BDC Tokyo is the conduit for accessing that set of subsidy. That's subsidy at the Tokyo government level for which is applicable to fintech companies.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have another question from Martin, who says, we have hired successfully internally and are on the final stages in the approval process. We are facing difficulties in bringing in IT and support seniors on short-term assignments to kickstart the booking process and to link the Tokyo office with the regional and global booking centers. How can we solve the visa issues?
The visa issues. The visa issues, are you already speaking to like the documentation lawyers, the Gyosei Shoshi I was talking about earlier? I think you will need specialist advice there in terms of furnishing the paperwork. If you're already in the process, it's not the question about the law itself, is it?
No, I don't think it's
being stuck in it's.
I think
being
the
stuck in the
answer
process.
is yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Without knowing exactly where you are, I think it's hard to kind of give a blanket answer here. And I would, if you have already, I would suggest that you work further with the documentation lawyer or the advisors that you're speaking to. I'm sorry, I can't give a very rounded, full answer, but because I don't exactly understand what the specific situation at this point is.
Okay, and just a few things to note.
Yeah.
So Business Development Center will be discussing various subsidies later. And yeah, okay, so I think that's all the questions for this section. So thank you again, Ms. Takegoshi. And our next speaker will be from the Financial Services Agency of Japan, the Deputy Director of Strategic Development Division, Strategic Development and Management Bureau, Takahiro Yamakawa. And he will be discussing the Japanese government's initiatives.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank FinCity Tokyo for inviting us to this great opportunity. Like the time of the first event last month, today I'm here as a representative of the Japan FSA, or the representative of the Japanese government. To explain our effort to make Japan the Asian and global financial hub. So this is one of the top priority of the Japanese government. The Prime Minister Suga stated at the policy speech to the Diet on October 26 that the Japanese government will aim for establishing the Asian and global financial center by welcoming overseas financial professionals. He added that in doing so, the government will expedite the consideration on the reduction of tax, English processing of the administrative services, and the relaxation of the residency conditions. In line with the Prime Minister's speech, Japan FSA has been working hard on this issue in coordination with relevant ministries. Among others, we're prioritizing the introduction of an option for asset managers to be supervised in English, from applications to start business in Japan to daily regulatory interactions. We hope to make a detailed official announcement in the very near future. With that, I'd like to spend next several minutes to explain our initiatives and support system for the firms like you, like the participants today. As some of you are not here in the first event last month, please allow me to talk about our initiatives, including topics I covered last month. The important message is, this time it's different. As the Prime Minister stated, the Japanese government will make Japan the Asian and global financial hub. Please allow me to elaborate. As many other aspects of lives and businesses, the COVID-19 is a game changer. Suddenly, we're trapped in the country, or even worse, within a single city after the COVID outbreak. We cannot travel from one Asia-Pacific headquarters to other important businesses locations in the region. This means that we must now reconsider the excessive concentration in one business location. Thinking of the growing volume and diversity of Asia-Pacific business, it's time to consider having multiple business locations in the Asia-Pacific region. And Japan will be an inevitable part of your multiple location strategy in the Asia-Pacific area. Of course, the COVID should be beaten. The current restriction of international travel will be and should be lifted in the near future, and the government is working on this. But our experience with COVID has shown us that the way of conducting business before the disease was fragile and needs to be reconsidered. Another driving force for multiple locations is a need to deal with growing global risks. I don't think I have to mention the current US-China relations to warn you of the growing geopolitical risk in the region, while climate change and related natural disaster risks are obviously growing as well. Having multiple locations to mitigate these risks of your country and help strengthen the resilience of the global financial system at the same time. Now, let me move on to the next topic. When you reconsider where to be located in the Asia-Pacific region, what can Japan offer you? Japan has overwhelming strength, a stable and mature political system, a reliable legal system, a wide variety of natural attractions, from powder snow in Hokkaido to tropical beach resorts in Okinawa, and a rich culture and entertainment. Moreover, in a sense of business, we have the capital market of the third largest economy and more than $19 trillion financial assets of Japanese households. This is a huge opportunity. Of course, Japan has some weaknesses in comparison to other financial hubs in Asia. The language barrier in business and everyday life, slow financial regulatory process, and other business processes, difficulties in finding or bringing domestic helpers and nannies, and the tax burden. Being aware of the sea change underway in the choice of business locations in the Asia-Pacific region, at the Japanese government, we will never leave these weaknesses unattended. We're going to fix them. First, English only and swift registration processes at JFSA and its local offices. At the JFSA, we will undertake registration and other regulatory processes in English for foreign asset management firms, which consider entering the Japanese market. We plan to introduce an option for asset managers to be supervised in English from application to start business in Japan to daily regulatory interactions. We're going to make an official announcement in a very near future, probably first or at least in the next month, which will be delivered to you, all the participants today via email message. Second, support with non-financial regulatory business procedures and everyday life for foreign companies and business persons. Even though JFSA supports you in financial regulatory procedures, you also need to go through some other business procedures, such as establishing a company or finding an office and hiring staff. You also need to find a house as well as the proper school for your children, and maybe clinics and hospitals. Also, JFSA is coordinating with relevant ministries and agencies so that immigration and other policies could be also revisited. Also, FinCity Tokyo and Tokyo Metropolitan government are here to help you in the Tokyo area. The JFSA is already cooperating with them closely. Third, domestic helpers and nannies. Unlike Hong Kong and Singapore, domestic helpers and nannies are not very common among ordinary Japanese people, but we're well aware that they support the family lives of highly skilled financial business persons in many cases. Together with FinCity Tokyo and relevant ministries at the JFSA, we're looking into this issue and we're going to find out what we can do. Last but not least, the tax burden. I'm aware that most of you here are interested in what I'm going to say about tax issues. And to be frank, I would not say that our tax level will ever be like that in Singapore or Hong Kong, which are both state countries. That said, on September 30th, we made a tax reform proposal this year to the Ministry of Finance to take measures about corporate, income, and inheritance tax. Going forward, we will discuss with tax authority or the Ministry of Finance to realize preferential treatment for asset management firms which newly entered the Japanese market. Along with the tax level, we also want you to take into account the price levels and rent for an office and residence when you estimate disposable income in the case of moving to Japan. It is often misunderstood, but nowadays, Japanese price levels and rent are lower than those in Singapore and Hong Kong. This should be one of the key factors when you consider your business location strategy. These are just a few of our efforts to welcome you to the International Financial Hub Japan, and we do not intend to stop here. Rather, we will continue to create better policies going forward. Like I said earlier, this time is different, also in terms of the government organization. This is actually the first time for the Japanese government to tackle this issue as a cross-ministerial initiative. It is true that the Japanese Financial Authority has tackled this issue several times in the past. However, under Prime Minister Suga's initiatives to get rid of the sectionalism of the bureaucratic system, the Japanese government will make a concerted effort not only by the financial authority, but also with the relevant ministries responsible for residency conditions, starting business, living environment, and so on. Please stay tuned to hear about our upcoming announcement, and we hope this will help you enter the Japanese market. Thank you very much. And back to the facilitator. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Yamakawa. So we have one question. Let me get to that in just a second. Give me just a moment, please. Okay, so I believe the question was, how does the JFSA help foreign firms connect to firms in Japan?
Well, at this moment, we don't actually have a system to connect you guys to the Japanese firms. But if you have any the request, you can send an email message to us, and we'll try our best to connect you to the Japanese firms. And well, I hope that answers the question.
Okay, all right, thanks a lot. And then one other question, with regards to a domestic helper consideration, would the criteria relief also be considered or addressed for a Japanese national?
Oh, what do you mean by for Japanese nationals? Can I
Yeah,
ask?
so I believe the question is asking if a Japanese national also wanted to bring a domestic helper
Oh
to
yeah.
Japan, whether the
Uh-huh.
the same criteria would apply or no.
Yeah, we're aware of that, that opinion, and we're working hard to, do something, but it's still under discussion, and we're working hard, discussing deeply with the Ministry of Justice, and we're just waiting for their answer. And also we're working with the Cabinet Office. So possibly we can announce something in the near future, but it's still under discussion.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And one other question, are there any kind of fast track support available for acquiring licenses?
So yeah, that's what we're working on. And possibly in the near future, we can announce something, and fast track, and also in English only process.
Okay. Okay, so that's all the questions for this section. Mr. Yamakawa, thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and our next speaker will be from the Business Development Center Tokyo, the financial desk consultant, Mr. Nobuyuki Yagi, and he'll be giving an introduction of BDCT and the financial one-stop service. So I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Yagi.
Thank you for your introduction. Can you hear me? Can you? Yes, okay. Thank you. Thank you for your great interest to the Tokyo financial market. My name is Nobuyuki Yagi, financial desk consultant at BDCT, which is the consultation desk of Tokyo Metropolitan Government, TMG. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to introduce the outline of the service of BDCT today. First page, please. Next page, please. Thank you. Now, before talking about the function of the financial desk, I would just outline the function of the entire BDCT here in this page. As described here, we provide a support service, various kinds of support service, such as incorporation and the visa application. We also introduce experts to help you administrative work and recruiting agencies. Business matching is also available, like today's event. The BDCT's desk is located in two areas. One is in Marunouchi and one in Akasaka. And the financial desk, like a blue figure, financial desk is located in Marunouchi, very close to Tokyo Station. Next, please. Next, please. Next page, please. Oh, thank you. Okay, in this page, I will describe the function of financial desk. Service of this desk is available only for the financial companies, such as asset management companies and fintech companies. And if you want to get some support from us, firstly, please give us an inquiry either by email or perhaps phone call. And before Corona, we had face-to-face meetings, but however, currently we would prefer to have email contact or phone call, online contact. Our consultation is obviously free of charge. At the first inquiry, you are advised to give us maybe 3 points to us. The first one is your corporate profile, and second one, your business plan in Tokyo, and finally, what kind of support you look for. Once we got your information, we'll start the consultation in our desk. And as you can see, we can provide a lot of various kind of support service. However, very popular request is maybe focusing on two things. One is for advice for financial license. And the second one is introduction of a financial expert, such as lawyers and such and such. And sometimes, depending on your need, we would may do a joint consultation with FSA, which means that I would take you to FSA's financial desk, entry desk. As you can see from the chart, we can, as I said right now, sorry. Okay. Also, we can introduce financial expert or business supporters to you. Financial experts like lawyers and administrative scrivener, which is we call in Japan gyosei shoshi or shihou shoshi. Or we can introduce you some company who is maybe coming to this presentation later on today, Japan Asset Management Platform. The kind of business supporter will be also introduced to you upon your request. Also, if you want to have a practical support for business establishment incorporation, we can take you to another desk called TOSBEC, which is also the desk under the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Next page, please. Oh, sorry. Going back, please. Sorry. And I didn't write down on this paper, but maybe I should say one thing to you regarding the financial licensing. If you are the asset management company, obviously you need to have a license. But in Japan, it is not a license. Actually, it is a business registration to FSA. And if you're asset managers, then you need to get that. And also for fintech company, if your business includes financial business, then you need to get the registration for FSA. And it sometimes takes a long time. Usually it takes maybe around 6 months or more, and sometimes it takes close to 1 year. So you should take it note in your mind and consider your business plan to start the business in Tokyo. Sorry, next please. This is just contents of country and contents of inquiry of contents, sorry, and the country. As you can see, about 30% of inquiry is basically asking for outline of support service of BDCT. Another 1/3 or more would be related to a subsidy program, which I will introduce later on. And as I write down in the blue circle, there's the size of the company coming to my desk is differs, but in the case of a startup company and not having any business connection, they start with overall inquiry and then going into a specific request. Inquiry by country is, as you can see at this chart. Next, please. Now, at this page and next page, we will introduce you the two types of subsidy program. The first one here is the program for the newcomer who wants to start the business in Tokyo. In other words, if you have never set up the company in Tokyo, if you or your group company has never operated your business in Tokyo, you're basically eligible for this subsidy program. Expenses eligible for the subsidy is, as you can see, there's two types. One is for a consultation fee for lawyers and such, and the other one is recruiting cost, which maybe you will pay for a recruiting agency. The other, and the maximum amount of the subsidy is 7.5 million, which will cover the half of your actual eligible cost. The down bottom is the flow of processing. You can start with the consultation with me at the financial desk, as I write marked in yellow. And at this first meeting, I'll listen to your business plan and such, and clarify the point, and then you have a consultation meeting with TMG. After meeting with TMG, you just go for your own plan to start and establish your business in Tokyo. And right after your establishment, you can apply for a subsidy program, and hopefully you get some subsidy. Now, in other words, the subsidy will not be paid before you start the business, so you should be careful about this point. And next, please. And this, yes, this subsidy is the other subsidy program, which is for the company who has already established the company. And if you are in the second or third fiscal year, you will be eligible for this subsidy program. Now, I said the fiscal year. The fiscal year in Japan means from April 1st to March, the end of March next year. So please keep that in mind. The cost you be covered will be the three types of cost: office rents, the consulting fees for experts, and purchase cost of equipment like a personal computer or maybe desk and chairs. Maximum amount would be 10 million yen, again covering the half of eligible cost. The applying process will be a bit simple. We just start with a consultation with me at the financial desk, and after that to have another meeting with TMG. And after that, you can apply for the subsidy at your most convenient timing in the same fiscal year. And as I write down in red, there's a lot of conditions which I cannot write down here. So just please ask me if you have any interest about this subsidy program. Maybe you can ask by email such and such, or maybe you can ask me at the first meeting for me at the beginning of the process. So that's the introduction of the two subsidies. And finally, next page, please. This is just access information for us in Tokyo and in Hong Kong. Upper side is our information. As I said before, we are located in Marunouchi. There's a phone number and email address and homepage. Also, we have just opened the Hong Kong operation this month in Shimshatsui in Hong Kong. And again, email and homepage information is here. So you can access to, if you are located in Asia, you can access to Hong Kong office as well. We try to communicate from, between Tokyo and Hong Kong closely so that we can give you a better service to you. That's all from me. Thank you for listening to me. And if you have any question, please ask me.
All right, great. Mr. Yagi, thank you very much for your presentation. And just as a reminder to everybody participating, we are taking questions via the Q&A feature in the Zoom, so please feel free to add additional questions. We do have one question from Jonathan Naporo that I would like to ask to Mr. Yagi. And so this question is, will FinCity and BDCT provide full legal service and support for JFSA application for foreign asset managers? So it sounds as if English to Japanese documentation translation may not be required in the near future. So how should we build this into our timeline? As an external counsel has advised that this can take a considerable amount of time and cost. So it sounds like the real point of the question is, what is the scope of the full legal service and support provided for the Japan FSA application for foreign asset managers? And then what's the potential impact of the if the English to Japanese document translation may not be required in the near future?
Now, for the time being, yes, if you want to make an application in local financial bureau, you need to translate from English to Japanese. Not from my FSAs, I'm not quite sure, but in the future, they will maybe do some care for that point. But for the time being, unfortunately, still you need to make a translation. So what I would suggest you is maybe get some people who is very sort of familiar with the Japanese financial law. Maybe you hire some compliance staff. He will be better person for that aspect. But of course, this is a matter of law. So you must, I would strongly suggest you to consult with lawyer first, and then ask somebody, for example, administrative scrivener, which I told before, in Japanese, 司法書士 or 行政書士, they will help you for your administrative work. But mind you that if you are facing to the staff from financial bureau, local bureau, your supporter cannot attend that meeting, and somebody from your company actually have a communication with them. So that is a point for the time being. The other thing is maybe we will have a presentation today, later on, from JNMP. They provide, of course, as a business support, but they provide similar kind of one-stop service, including introduction of 行政書士 such and such, also helping some part of your compliance side. So maybe you can ask also them from that aspect. I don't know if that is the question to them.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Yagi. And then he's also asking, what's the best way to get in touch with the financial desk consultant for the subsidy? So the contact information is listed here. I'm assuming that's the way to get in touch with you, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Please give me your email. And I'm in charge of that, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And also for subsidy 3-2, can we apply for continuous 2 years or only once?
Now, for the first subsidy program, which is for the newcomer, that is only one time right after the establishment of a business. And for second program, yes, as far as that program is existing, you can apply for first second fiscal year after your commencement of business, and third fiscal year. So two times could be possible.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So with that, we will start moving into part two, which is the introduction of Japan's ecosystem and financial industry trends. So our first speaker for part two is from FinnoLab Inc. And this is the head of FinnoLab. It's the Chief Community Officer, Makoto Shibata, who will be discussing the
Yes, I think I can start. Can I share my yes slide? Yes. Okay. Just 1 second while I start my slide. Okay, so thank you very much for having me, and I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to FinCity Tokyo. And today I'd like to talk about the fintech community in Tokyo, and starting from attraction of Tokyo in terms of fintech. So now we are observing very healthy growth in fintech activities. The startups are growing, and the collaboration between startups and banks are expanding. And there are very strong need from a financial institution to digitize, especially after this COVID-19. Financial institutions have realized that they need to reorganize their branch networks and digitize their offerings. So they are looking for smart solutions to improve their quality of services in digital way. And also, size of the market is fairly big, and it's one of the top in the world. And moving on to a fintech ecosystem, I would like to emphasize that the stakeholders in fintech area are all becoming very active. For example, regulators or public offices, FSA, and other government offices are now offering a regulatory sandbox to test out new ideas. And also, FSA has their own fintech office, and also Bank of Japan have their own fintech center to support different fintech initiatives. And also, as you heard, Jetro, Tokyo Metropolitan Government is supporting the entry of fintech companies. And there are many legal experts, and I guess we will hear a lot later, but there are many dedicated experts for payment or other areas of financial services. And also, we are seeing some of the lawyers working in the government sector for maybe like 2 years to support legal process. And also, some of these people going back to their law office would support startups to initiate their businesses. And we've seen specialists in different areas. And from startup side, the community of startup is growing. And now we've seen FinTech Association in Japan growing. And now we'll talk about the other communities later. And also the funding activities are expanding. And during the COVID-19, we've seen a slowdown from venture capital side, but gradually it's coming back. And in terms of fintech investment, we have pretty optimistic view in the future. And the collaboration between startups and collaboration with financial institutions are expanding. And also from the investor side, we have seen an increasing trend in early stage to later stage. And many investors are involved in acceleration activities to scale. And also we have seen many entries of corporate venture capital, mainly supported by financial institutions. And also in academic institutions, we have seen new fintech courses created, and also they have been active in incubation and funding. Some academic institutions are creating their own venture fund. And also now we are seeing changes in career pattern, so that initially in previously many graduates from the good university would go into government sector or large corporates, but now we are seeing some of the very top students starting their own business or going into the venture areas, startup areas. And financial institutions are very active in creating their dedicated teams, and also they're active in investing in fintech firms. And we have seen a lot of collaboration. So now with this ecosystem growing, we have seen a lot of interaction going on between these stakeholders, and also the community within the stakeholders are formed, and I'll come back to that in later. And I think today many people talked about what is the entering process to the Japan market. And typically you start with feasibility study, and then the physical entry of registering the company will take place, and then you go into the business development. And I think many advices are given from public sector, professional service and financial institutions or business partners. But here I would like to emphasize the importance of community. Once you enter into a community, it would be easier for you to find out about many minute things from others, especially from those who went through the similar process. And here I would like to explain a little bit about the community expansion in Tokyo. And there are many community with physical space like FinLab, like us, and there's the FinTech Association, and FinGate, very strong in asset management, and also Plug and Play from the US is now in Japan, and they have a very strong accelerator program. And Tokyo FinTech Meetup is for foreign person, mainly engineers and business person who's gathering virtually from time to time for different events. And also there's a FinTech engineer community specialized in engineering. And also there's the InsurTech Meetup. And there are some others, but it's quite interesting that along with the FinTech activity expanding, we are seeing these communities expanding. And also many financial institutions are hosting their accelerator or incubation office, and that would also create the community of its own. So MEFG has Spark and Japan Digital Design, and Adventure Lab is created by Noreen Chuking, and Nisei has their Nisei Life. Nisei Life has a Nisei X laboratory, and the run is organized by Fukuoka Financial Group, and Mizuho has Blue Lab, and GMO AssetNet Bank created the Snabar, and SMBC created Hoops Link in Shibuya, and Nomura has N-Village. And it's quite interesting to see that most of these offices or incubation facilities are located within 5 kilometers radius of central Tokyo. So it's very accessible. So I advise you to reach out and try to find any of these communities which may be available for your needs. And just briefly about FinLab. We started from our journey in 2016, and now we have like 600 members with 51 startups and 16 corporates. And among these corporates, there are more than 10 startups from abroad. And we've been supporting them from early stage of entering a Japan market to growing process. And also some Japanese startups have staff members from abroad. And now that the living cost in major cities are going up, and some engineers, for example, in Silicon Valley in the US, the living cost has grown up. So some of this engineers decided to come to Japan to work for a fintech startup here in Japan. And all after these supporting these startups, we have learned some lessons. So basically, it's not just one company, but there are many similar companies out there to make challenges. So you can learn from each other. And also, it is always a good idea to pursue open innovation, working with other people. And especially now, financial institution in Japan, which was known to be conservative, are switching to open innovation policy so that you have pretty good chance to work with them. And also diversity is blessing, not a hurdle. And I think Japanese society is changing, and once you become a part of a community, then you won't be stopped for being a foreign person. And I think people are becoming very understanding about person who's from outside of Japan. So I just would like to emphasize that the power of community is key to your success, and especially in financial service with changing trend with emerging technology. I think you would find it quite exciting to come to Tokyo and knock on the doors of one of the community, just like FinLab here in Tokyo. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Shibata, for your presentation. That was very interesting. So we have a few questions here for you. One is, can we expect networking with local players once we become a member of FinLab?
Yes, so we have regular events, and before COVID-19, we had the meetup every week, but now we're switching to online version, And now we slowly started with a hybrid version. So we limit the number of participants and not to be too crowded, but gradually we are increasing. And also we were organizing many events, inviting other people outside of FinoLab. And I think it would be a good opportunity. And we have very good working relationship with other communities like FinTech Association or Plug and Play. And we co-host many events. And now many of them are shifted to online, but we are now starting to explore the new tools for associating each other using the online tool. So I think you would find it possible to meet other startups through different platforms.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And how can you become involved with FinoLab from abroad?
Right. So basically, we have some process of acceptance. We go through some testing phase, but if you can contact us, we will advise what would be the best way. And even if we cannot help by providing office, or if you're not interested in becoming a member of FinoLab, we can guide you to other organization or other platform which would suit your needs.
Okay, thank you very much. And can you name a few examples of startups that have successfully expanded in Japan, specifically focusing on companies that have come to Japan from abroad?
Right. So, for example, one successful example is TransferWise, which is the payment fund transfer. They started from our office and got the license as a fund transfer agent. And they started from a small room, but now they've moved to a larger space. And also, Revolut recently started their Challenger Bank offerings in Japan. They first stayed in the office to do market research, and then established a Japan entity. And once they formed the big team, then they moved out for larger space. But that's quite typical of what we've observed, starting from maybe a hot desk or small room, and then move on to a larger space, and then find a very large office outside.
Okay, great. Thank you. And what is involved for becoming a member, like for a startup that wants to be a member of FinoLab? What is involved?
Right. So basically, we are looking for relatively new company. So for Japanese startups, we limit the company within 5 years of establishment. And for foreign startups, it's not strictly applied, but we try to look for a startup with relatively young history. And also, we are focusing on fintech area. And now the area of fintech is expanding, so it's quite difficult to make judgment, but we want to have some sort of financial service content. And also, we do a due diligence in terms of KYC. So it's similar to a financial institution opening an account. We do these things. But if you have a good track record in your home market, it's highly likely that we can accept your application. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you again for your time today, Mr. Shibata. So next we'll be moving to J Career Co. Limited, the Sales Department General Manager, Makoto Yamakami. And this next part will be about hiring financial professionals in the Japanese labor market.
Thank you. Can I share my PC screen?
Sure, go ahead. That should be fine.
Okay. Right.
Okay, we see it. Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time today. It's my great pleasure to be here to introduce the topic. I'm Mak Yamakami of J-Carrier, recruiting agent. J-Carrier was founded 6 years ago. During the past 6 years, we have successfully increased our market penetration in Japanese market. In terms of our corporate strategy, we put a strategic focus on financial and IT sectors. Today, I have 15 minutes to talk about the topic, including Q&A session. It is difficult to talk about everything in such short amount of time, but I will try and look forward to your questions later. I want to begin with an introduction of a job hunting market in Japan. I hope you will have some image of the market. This chart illustrates number of job seekers by each industry. Total number of users who are registered in this database is over 60,000. You see, IT professionals are active in seeking jobs. It is about 30%. But financial professionals are not so active. It represents only 6%. So the universe of financial professionals who seek for job opportunities is relatively small compared with other industries. So it is important to actively contact and find the talented candidates who are not registered in the database. In conclusion, scouting is essential, and we have to do it in a professional way. We need to explain and persuade potential candidates to help them understand why the opportunity is attractive for them. Now, let's move on next slide. I want to share information with you about the asset management industry. The data comes from Japan Investment Advisors Association. The association is composed of asset management companies who are operating in Japan. At present, 313 asset management companies are registered. Total number of staff is over 14,000, which increased by 1.7% on year-to-year basis. I presume this is a base universe for asset managers to find potential candidates. For your information, I added numbers of the average AUM per staff and per company. But it is needless to say, there is a big difference between active managers and passive managers in numbers. So you need to take it into account. When it comes to product appetite, of final beneficiaries, such as pension sponsors and financial institutions, needs for alternative products have been increasing, such as private equity, real estate fund, and infrastructure fund. Unconstrained type of products has become popular as well. If you have competitive products like these, you have a chance to stand out in the market. Okay, now let's go on the next slide. This is about fintech sector. Fintech is an emerging sector and the market is growing, but the human supply does not meet the demand. We think that it is not easy to identify specialists in this arena from resource universe of only Japanese. We have contacted and have been contacted by fintech companies about the human resource issues over the past few years. Based on conversation with them, I want to deliver the following points from the viewpoint of recruiting agent. First, you need to recruit relevant personnel from other industries, regardless of nationality. This is because of a lack of Japanese specialists. Japan is now in the process of building a new business in this arena, and the resource is not secured to the full. Second, technical training. Many IT people want to improve their IT skill. Technical training is important for them, and this stimulates their qualification incentive. So this is a good means to retain your staff. Third, competitive compensation. Competition among fintech companies to acquire good resources have become tougher and tougher. Money is not everything, but important. Fourth, comfortable working environment. One of the ideas about this is a space for relaxation and other equipment to attract your staff. This is also important part to retain your staff. Next, securing human resources for Japanese financial sector. In order to acquire top-tier resources, you need a recruiting agent who has very senior and experienced hands in the financial industry. You need an agent who fully understands your needs for the requested position. We are very happy to help you. Before finishing my presentation, please let me introduce our company briefly. J-Carrier was founded 6 years ago, and we have increased our market penetration step by step. Total number of clients is over 600, and 50% of our staff speak English. We are also promoting diversity, as you are. 40% of our staff is female, but 50% of our business manager is female. And we have 2 staff from overseas. One is from UK and another is from China. We welcome people from overseas. And regarding specialty, we have 3 professionals who previously worked for foreign asset management companies. Our CEO has an experience as a portfolio manager for a long time, and he's very familiar with investment management. And myself, I spent 30 years at foreign asset management companies and specialized in institutional sales to cover both public and private pension sponsors and financial institutions as well. And my colleague, she joined our team recently. She has 23 years of experience of mutual fund business as a sales specialist. She also has experience as a CEO at several foreign asset management companies. We understand your client needs and service requirements. Our experience and business knowledge enable us to identify potential candidates for the requested position. Now it's time come. I want to stop my presentation here. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Yamakami. So we do have one question for you, which is, it seems that hiring in Japan has been a huge challenge, especially for foreign fintech firms that try to grow in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So even recent graduates in Japan with high unemployment rates now seem reluctant to apply. So do you have any suggestions on how to address the hiring challenges?
Yes, good questions. Yes, we have met the new graduates so far. And under the corona situations, some of the companies are facing difficulties to employ new graduates. But we have a feeling that the new graduates also, some of them have some very, very positive idea to enter into this world. So problem here, they are not fully informed about your companies. So this is quite important thing. So we try to contact the university students in many opportunities. So one idea is to use agents like us to disseminate your company information to the graduates in an efficient way. That might be the answer. I hope this answer to the questions.
Sure, thank you very much. And we have one more question, which is,
Sure.
Is recruitment directly from Japanese universities typical?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, for what types of positions and industries?
What is the position? Sorry, would you tell me more specifically what the position of what?
The question is just in general about hiring directly from Japanese universities.
Mm-hmm.
So is recruitment from universities typical? And then what types of positions and industries is it typical?
Good. Yes, I think that the answer is my answer is that there are a variety of options for students. The financial institutions and the automakers, other corporates, trading company, etc. I think that the opportunity is widely open to them. And in Japan, around spring, the most of the company opened the website for entry of the Japanese new graduates. So, and through this entry system, the entry home system, basically Japanese university students can get access to the information, and basically the answer to this question is that very variety of position is available. So there's no only typical example.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the answer.
Sure.
And what kind of opportunities do you see for people who are not Japanese speakers?
I think that we see that many IT companies now welcome the people from overseas. You know, in talking about the Rakuten case, their official language is English. And basically, it's IT people, if they don't have a good command of Japanese, I think that they have a good opportunities, a lot of opportunities to come to Tokyo and to get a job at a company like Rakuten. But in case of the, the client-facing job, it might be difficult. So I think the IT sector and the recently that the financial institution opened the door to the new graduate who's from overseas as well. So I think there are a lot of chances.
Okay, great. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we'll be moving to Atsumi and Sakai, and we'll be hearing from a partner, attorney at law, Eiichiro Hata. And Eiichiro Hata will be discussing recent topics on Japanese financial sector regarding laws and regulations. Mr. Hata?
Thank you for introduction. Can I share my slide?
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry. Is my slide shared?
We don't see it yet.
Okay. Sorry, wait a minute. Sorry. So I can.
Yeah, we can actually we have the slides on our side, so we're gonna put them up.
Okay, so can you share?
Sure, no problem.
Sorry.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Eiichiro Hata, a partner at Atsumi and Sakai, and I am pleased to have this opportunity to talk to you all. So before getting down to the main topics, please let me briefly introduce my firm, Atsumi and Sakai. So please go to the next slide. So Atsumi and Sakai is a Japanese law firm based in Tokyo with overseas offices in London and Frankfurt. We provide one-stop legal services to both domestic and international clients. But among other practice areas, the finance is historically our main practice for a long period of time. And in particular, we are advising the fintech and asset management related business in recent years. And we are providing the advice on the applicable regulations and assistance of foreign players entry into the Japanese market, such as setting up entity employment-related matters, and also assistance in licensing and the registration process. So, given such features of our firm's practice, we also align with the FinCity Tokyo as supporting member So as of today, we are only law firm member of FinCity Tokyo. So it is a very great pleasure that we can help for foreign financial service providers who is interested in Japanese market. So can you go to the next slide, please? Today, I'm going to briefly introduce recent key legal update on the payment service framework and also financial intermediary services as listed as 2 bullet points here, both of which I think are relevant to the fintech or financial service providers who are thinking of doing business in Japan. And if I had time, I also wanted to mention the registration for asset management related businesses, also incorporation related update. But unfortunately, I think I do not have enough time for that today. So I'm going to focus on the first 2 points and also so firstly, could you please go to the next slide, please? One more, please. Thank you. So firstly, I'm going to talk about recent update on the legal framework of payment services. This slide is English translation of the FSA's material of the amendment of the Payment Service Act, which is enacted in June this year. The graphic in the upper side of this slide illustrates the current legal framework of payment services, and the bottom part shows the framework after the amendment. In the current framework, the many of payment service providers in Japan are operating its businesses based on the registration of a fund transfer service provider under the Payment Service Act. But under this registration, only money transfer up to 1 million Japanese yen per transfer is allowed. So for money transfer exceeding 1 million Japanese yen, banking license is required. However, in the industry, it has been pointed out that there are needs for money transfer higher amount, including overseas remittance. On the other hand, it was also pointed out that the registration of the smaller amount category with the less stringent regulation would be helpful for many of payment service provider, because in reality, many of payment service provider are only handling small amount, such as tens of thousands of yen. So by the amendment of the Payment Service Act, there will be 3 categories of the registered fund transfer service providers. First, as in the right side of the bottom of the slide, a large amount category can handle money transfer over 1 million yen per transaction. In this category, there will be no statutory limit on the maximum amount per transfer, but in exchange, not mere registration, but authorization on a business plan from the regulator will be required. And also, they will be subject to stricter regulation on acceptance of funds than current regulation. And so the service provider may receive users' funds only if there is a specific transfer instruction from users. And also they need to immediately transfer users' funds as per their instruction, which means retention of users' funds will be strictly restricted under this category. Second, the present category of money transfer up to 1 million Japanese yen will be kept as is, with certain adjustment in its regulation regarding acceptance of funds. And in addition, there will be another category that can handle only small amount, with certain streamlined regulations in way of securing assets required as user protection. To give some further details about this point, all of fund transfer service providers under the current framework, in order to secure its assets to protect users' interests, deposit with a deposit office or bank guarantee or trust with a trust bank is required, at least for more than 10 million yen. But after the amendment, instead of these ways of securing assets, managing users' funds in a separate bank account will be allowed for the small amount category. The exact amount of this small amount category will be fixed in a cabinet order later, but now it is expected to be 50,000 yen. There are also some other changes in the regulations of the fund transfer service provider, but I could not address to them today. So by this amendment, payment service providers can choose appropriate category of registration depending on the amount of transfer they would handle under its business model without being subject to too much regulations. And this amendment will be in effect in the first half of 2021. Then another key legal update. Could you please skip the 2 pages? Thank you. Please go to the next. Thank you. Another key legal update which I introduced today is brokerage business in financial sectors. This slide is based on the FSA's material, again, on the amendment of the Act on the provision of financial services. Under the current framework, as the left side of the slide illustrates, when any financial service provider would like to operate intermediary business between users and financial institutions such as banks, securities companies, or insurance companies, they need to obtain all necessary licenses or registration under each of applicable laws. In addition, under the current framework, such service provider or of intermediary business needs to be subcontracted by specific financial institutions and subject to guidance from such financial institutions. It has been pointed out that such current legal framework is quite burdensome for service providers who is going to do intermediary businesses in multiple financial sectors or with multiple financial institutions. Actually, there have been quite a few cases where financial service providers have obtained all of these intermediary businesses license and registration under the current legal framework. The amendment of the law this year, enacted this year, will create a new category of financial brokers, as in the right side of the slide, which is one-stop financial brokers that cover multiple financial sectors and independent of the financial institutions. With this single registration of a financial broker, you can provide intermediary services of banking, securities, and insurance, as well as money lending, without being affiliated with any specific financial institutions. On the other hand, specific range of financial services or financial instruments that financial broker can handle under this new scheme will be limited to those with low risks in terms of customer protection. Details for such limitation will be determined in the cabinet order, but from the discussion in the working group for the amendment, for example, ordinary deposit will be included, but foreign currency deposit or structured deposit will not be included, I guess. By this amendment for creation of financial brokers, it is expected that the financial brokers with the single registration can respond to users' needs for variety of financial services provided by a number of financial institutions from multiple financial sectors. this amendment will be enforced in late 2021, and the further details regulations are to be determined in the cabinet order by then. So we need to continue to pay close attention to the development in the regulations. I think I'm going to running out my time, but finally, please let me skip to, could you please skip 2 or 3 pages? Next, please. So finally, I would briefly mention that recent change in the changes in update in incorporation matters. I just quickly mentioned that it is getting faster for foreign business operator to set up entity in Japan in these days, with various effort by the regulators. In our experience, there is a case where the registration for incorporation was completed within a day from the application. I could say that it's getting faster for foreign companies to get setting up the company in Japan. So I think I'm running out of my time. So look at the questions.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. Yeah, we are out of time for this section, so I'm going to skip over the question and answer part and go ahead and go to the last speaker for the day. So the last one for today is from the Japan Asset Management Platform Group, Director Koichi Iwabuchi, who will be discussing challenges and supports for starting financial businesses in Japan.
Thank you all. Good evening. I'm Koichi Iwabuchi from Japan Asset Management Platform. Can I share this presentation? Okay. Okay. Today, I'd like to explain about challenge and support for starting financial business in Japan. This sheet shows the time schedule for a case of launching investment management business in Japan. Please see the arrow top of the chart. From kick off the regulator on the left middle to launch of business on the right end. You should understand it takes around 9 months in basic for the investment management business. During the first 6 months, you have to get regulators' understandings about your specific business model and your internal control process. Then you can submit the formal application to the regulators. After that, regulators start their official review in around 2 months based on their manual. Please note, even if you get the license, you cannot start your business immediately. After the license, you need to apply for the association's membership in general. After the association's approval, you can start your business. Please see 5 notes on the bottom of the sheet. They show 5 challenges during this project. Challenge 1, which license against your business model is required? Challenge 2, sufficient compliance staff and others are prepared. Challenge 3, good and reasonable office location and back office system are prepared. Challenge 4, can manage a daily compliance monitoring and back office operations. Challenge 5, is it possible to communicate in Japanese for the project? This sheet shows the 5 challenges and 5 solutions. For challenge 1, which license against business models, you can receive registration support to apply licenses to match your business models. Challenge 2, sufficient compliance staff and others. You can receive recruitment support for good compliance officers and other staffs. Challenge 3, office location for back office systems. You can receive research support for good and reasonable office and back office systems. Challenge 4, daily compliance monitoring, back office operations. You can receive compliance monitoring support and back office operation support. And challenge 5, communicate in Japanese. Though FSA has started to communicate in English, but you can receive Japanese communication support. There are many service providers to support part of 5 challenges in Japan. But I would like to say that JAMP, Japan Asset Management providers, platform, is a company to focus on supporting for whole challenges in English, as this sheet shows. Next sheet is the JAMP Group's profile for your reference. If you need more information, please access jampplatform.com. JAMP is keen to support your JAMP. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please ask us.
Okay, Mr. Iwabuchi, thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate it. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Wait a second. Yeah, okay, I'm not seeing any questions for this part. So, sorry. Can you please share all the email addresses of the speakers or whatever email they would like to use for inquiries? So they only stayed on the screen for a short time, so that someone wants to follow up. So we'll be sure to share those. And let's see. There's a question about if a foreign asset management company is having a JV in Japan with a Japanese securities company, and our Japanese partner does all the compliance and regulations and processing, does the foreign asset management company need a license? In the UK, they would not need to have a license. Oh, sorry, Mr. Iwabuchi, I think you're muted. There you go. So, yeah.
Actually, can you repeat the question about that?
Sure. So if a foreign asset management company has a JV in Japan with a Japanese securities company, and the Japanese securities company does all of the compliance and regulations, does the foreign asset management company still need a license?
Yeah, if such a foreign asset management company's business in Japan, especially for the client in Japan, the license is required.
Okay, thank you very much.
But of course, for the among the professionals matters is another discussion matters. For, only for the security firms approaches is a different dimension.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Is that all the questions? Okay, so that's all the questions for this section. So thank you again, Mr. Iwabuchi. And I'm going to pass to my colleague to wrap up our session for today. So go ahead and take us away.
Hello, this is Jackie. Thank you for your time today. I would like to share the schedule of upcoming events with you. So today's event is followed by 2 more seminar events in this year. The first event is for fintech companies and is planned to be held in November. In this event, we will have Japanese financial institutions and investors introduce about the target and the investment plan for foreign fintech companies. Also, there is a session for fintech companies conduct pitches to find business opportunities in Japan. And the second event is for asset management companies and is planned to be held in December. In this event, we will have Japanese asset owners, such as financial institutions, pension funds. They will introduce the demanding and new trend in Japan asset management market. And there's also a session for foreign asset managers to conduct pitches. The event site will be posted soon, so please allow us to send the email to send it to the email address you registered. And if you are interested in attending any one of these 2 events, please kindly have a check on that. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Okay, so just once again, thanks everyone for joining the session today. And we will be looking forward to seeing you again at the next one. Thank you. Oh, also, we will be distributing a survey. So don't forget to fill out the survey, as that is how we will know to distribute the next information. Okay, thank you again for joining.